right here. And that big white thing that's back there, right there, that white thing. Sorry, that's in the way. I forgot to move it. Oh well. So it's a piece of foam core that I use for filming and various other things. But yeah, so I'm glad you're here. It's Drama Free Friday, we hope. We're planning on Drama Free Friday. And yeah, so I don't have a lot of show and tell today. We did just a teeny bit. We did a trial run of the new live streaming on YouTube that's streaming through the channel, the individual channels. That I won't even get into that whole thing. But anyway, yeah, so we did a trial run with that the other day. That was fun. Some of you guys were there. And so what I did was this page. It was just something to do while we were doing the trial to see how it worked. Drama Free's right, isn't that right, Lynn? Don't we love Drama Free? The reason I say that, in case I haven't said it where all of you have heard it, is that there's enough garbage that goes on in the world that we can't do anything about. And so for the next couple of hours, we suspend all the garbage and we just make it stay outside the studio and outside of our little spheres of influence, and we decide to just be drama free. So anyway, on I think it was Wednesday, I did this page. Oops, camera's crooked, sorry. I did this page, and then I just wanted to show you what I did with this. Yes, indeed. Susan said, please tell that to my daughter, the bride. Yeah. Well, that's a losing battle. That's a losing battle to try and tell that to a bride. So anyway, this is what I did with the page that I made. Some of you were here and you got to see it when we did it. And so I was just playing around with various techniques that I learned in a class that I did with Jen Starr last week. And so this is what I did with it. I made it into a little book. Yep, Lynn, I understand. The older you get, the less you can handle drama. Isn't that the truth? So anyway, it turned out pretty well. I had to kind of play with the pages as I was folding it in order to get the butterflies, most of the butterflies to go the right direction. Because if you turn it the wrong way, the butterflies, some of them are still going up, but a lot of them are going the wrong, kind of the direction I didn't want. So I had to kind of play around with it a little bit, but finally got it the way I liked it. And yeah, it turned into this little book. Yeah, it did come out well. So what I'm going to do with it, what I did do with it, I don't know if you can see. I think you can see. See the reflection in it up around the butterflies? I added the Liquitex iridescent medium on top of everything except for the butterflies. So I left, hey Miko. And so that's what I did to give it a visual change of sheen as much as anything. So I'm just tipping it just so you can see. And I went back and I outlined, did some white outlining and, some scribbly black outlines around the butterflies there. I missed a scribbly part. I'll go back and get that later because it looks better to me, to my eye. If you can't do it exactly, to me it looks better if it's kind of scribbly looking. So, and yeah, so that's what I did with that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with the purple Pitt Artist Pen. This is Manganese Violet 160. This is the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen. This is the big brush style. And we'll pick one in here somewhere that's unobtrusive. How about this one? And so I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to pick some spots. And I'm going to add a little bit of shadow in purple here and hither and thither around the outsides of some of the bits and pieces of the butterflies. Maybe not every little bit, but you know, here and there, which will help pop them up off the page a little bit. You can do it with charcoal, you can do it with Stabilo pencil. I want something that's permanent, and so that's why I'm choosing to use this, because you have to work quickly. If you do, let me put it on in here where there's some green where you might be able to really see it. If you work quickly enough, you have time to blend. You can always spit on your finger. That helps too, to blend a little bit, but it is permanent, and so after it sets up, so you can't do, you know, great long, like I could never outline this whole thing and then get it to blend, so I'm having to do little short segments, and this only works if you're on top of something that's kind of sealed, which that medium, that iridescent medium, acts as kind of a sealer. If it's on top of paint, and which it is, there's paint under there, but very thin coats of paint. So you have to work in little short sections and immediately come back and blend with your finger, or you can blend with a brush, but the minute it becomes permanently dry, you're done. And so you got to be able to live with what you've got going on, because it's permanent, and so therein lies the beauty and the challenge of the Pitt pens when you're working with them this way. But I love the fact that when they're dry, they're permanent. So yeah. So that's what I'm going to do on this, and you can see your finger gets kind of gunky. And if you want to do more with that, then you can use black, or you can do other colors. I just mostly wanted just a hint of the shadow to come. Hi, Vicky. Sorry, this is a live recorded stream. I should say that for anybody watching the recording. And welcome, by the way, if you're watching the recording. This is live with a live chat, so I will be addressing people. Hi, Jean. Hi, Linda Mack. So yeah, come on in. Welcome, everybody. So that's what I'm going to do, and you can add more colors and what have you, but I just thought I would show you that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to make it into a card. So it'll be a card for somebody. So that's what we did, what I did with that. Let's see, do I have anything else? I don't think I have another thing for show and tell. So we'll go straight on into what we're going to do. Thanks, Miko. Miko says she likes the purple shadowing. I do too. I really like it. It just gives it that little punch, you know. So, yeah. Okay. So this magazine is what we're going to use today for the inspiration for what we're going to play with today. Today is just kind of a loose day, just kind of playing around. This week on the membership site, the HowToGetCreative.com membership, we did a thing on painted paper, on painted red rosin paper in particular. And so I thought we'd kind of continue that idea with the stream, on the stream. And my sound is extra awesome today. You must really been missing me, Miko. You must really be missing me. Hi, Annabelle. So we're going to use this magazine as our inspiration. And specifically what we're going to use is based on this little article right here. Brown paper bag. Packages, pouches, and envelopes. That is almost a tongue twister. How's Jan today? And Mr. Bear. How's Mr. Bear and Misty? Hope everybody's doing well in your neck of the woods up north. As my nephew used to say, up north with an F. Hi, Teresa. So everybody come in and just enjoy. If you want to get my attention, please type in caps because that's the chat that I'm using today. So anyway, this is what we're going to do. We're going to use this as our inspiration, and then we're going to jump off from this point. And while we're here, I thought I would just show you a little bit of this magazine. This is called Green Craft, obviously. Green Craft magazine. This is put out by the Stampington and Company people. Just buttering me up for the purple marker. Ah, got ya. Sure, Miss Miko, sure. And so this is the most current issue. This is the autumn issue, autumn 2015. So it should be on the stands for a while. It says display until October 31st. So you should be able to find this for a while. This one, I don't always buy this magazine, but this one had some particularly interesting things to me. And personally, I'm not fond of taking, you know, a thing from a magazine and copying exactly. I do enjoy the inspiration from different concepts, and you know, and then seeing how I could adapt that concept or that inspiration into what I like to do. And I particularly like that idea of using the brown paper bags. For example, this is using a slide, goes on a slide projector. Well, I had about a zillion of those that I donated to the Goodwill. I probably wouldn't use it to do what they're doing, which is kind of a Project Life kind of thing, ATC holder kind of thing. It's a good idea, but it's just not, you know, it doesn't really speak to me. But, you know, that doesn't mean it wouldn't, something else in here wouldn't speak to me, which did happen. Several things were very appealing to me, but the whole concept behind this, you know, this magazine is to upcycle and recycle and creating today, preserving tomorrow. That is their byline. So anyway, that's what we're going to play around with. So I thought was a particularly nice issue. This company produces lots of different magazines. I'm sure all of you know that. They are pricey, and that's why I don't generally get the subscription. I generally go in and sit down, look at them and think, okay, yeah, I like that one. And yeah, I like that one. And, you know, there's enough in it to make it worth my investment in the magazine. Then I go ahead and buy it and go from there. So this is my interpretation of the brown paper bag turned into envelopes and recycled into other things. So I'll show you this one and then we'll get started playing around. So it opens like this, and then it does have, you know, the little opening in there. And it's pretty roomy, you know, it's got quite a bit of room in this one. And find the ruler, I'll tell you what it is. Get the right way around. I feel like I'm on a QVC. It's about 6 inches. It's just a scooch narrower than 6 inches. And from where it's folded over, you know, the section that you could put something in, it's about just a scooch over 7 inches. It's almost 7 1/8. And then it has some little extra, whatever you call these things. There's a name for these, but I don't remember what it is. And then the pearl cotton is what I've used to wrap around it and holds the envelope closed. Okay. So there you go. That's what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to start out with your handy dandy trusty brown paper sack. Now I don't know if where you live you get these, but here you can, where I live, you can still get brown paper sacks or plastic. I almost said plastic paper sacks, which would be silly. You can get plastic bags. They ask you, paper or plastic? Except at a place like this one, which is more of a health food style market, natural foods kind of market, and they only give you paper. You can only use paper or recycled bags. And so that's what we're going to play with. Oh, thanks, Miko. So I'm going to switch to this way so you can see a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of bending things around a little bit, and this is going to be all kinds of noisy, but you know, it's like I wanted to show you exactly how I approach this. So I open up the bag, and these are particularly cool because they have red and craft colored stripes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm cutting out the side panel. Now you could cut it down the middle of the side panel if you want to save that, or you can leave this side panel attached to one, either the front or the back. It's totally up to you. Just for the ease of using it here on Ustream and having it to be a manageable size, I'm going to cut the side out. Because if the paper is too big, it becomes just really awkward to try and use. But that's a great piece of paper. You could use that by itself. And, you know, you could fold it into an envelope, you know, and it just have the striped. And you could write in the stripes. You could do all kinds of stuff. Now here we get 5 cents off. Every bag that we use that's a recycled bag of some type, they give you a nickel. So it's kind of an interesting way to motivate people to bring their own bags, which is what I do. So my brown paper sack stash is decreasing, definitely. So I'm just cutting around the bottom here. They're a little awkward when you first get started. And you can take your pick as to whether you keep this or whether you pitch it. But you can do some cool stuff even with the bottoms of the bags. Alright, so we have a nice piece of craft paper. The cats are also known as the sponsors, are totally drunk in the sunshine in the window. It cooled off here enough that I could open the windows, which was lovely. And so they are in there with both windows open, wide open, and they are having a ball. They are just totally drunk on the sunshine. Okay, so I have several pieces of brown paper. I suddenly want to break into brown paper packages tied up with string. Yeah, we won't go there. Okay, so I have several of these all prepared, but I did want to show you what I did to get them prepared. And then So I have my sheets of craft paper, and you can decide which side you want to do the paint process on, the decoration. Hi, Anita Kay. So we have, and you can tell that they're different sizes, you know, because these are both grocery sacks, but one of them is appreciably smaller than the other one. So then it comes down to, what do you want to do? What kind of colors do you want to use on them? And so I thought I would remind you about Design Seeds, which is a website that Dee Dee Inkwell reminded me of. This was a long time ago. She's mentioned it several times. It's Design Seeds, and they send you emails a couple times a day with different color combinations in them. Sure, Susan, go right ahead. And so what I've done is, I had great intentions of keeping up with this all year. I didn't get it all kept up with all year, but I got started on it. And so what I was doing is printing out the little things that they send in the email and putting them in here, and just for color inspiration. So this is just in a composition notebook, which I put a quilt on, an old quilt that was absolutely disintegrating, rotting, literally quite rotting away. And so I repaired it as best I could and did free motion stitching, and every once in a while it has to have a haircut. Did free motion stitching and so forth. And then glued it to the cover of this composition notebook. So that's all this is, and you can see I've done nothing to the inside. So it's just really eye candy in one spot when you get stuck for color combinations, if you get stuck. And so they've taken, always show you the inspiration photo, and then they show you the colors that they've pulled out of that inspiration photo. Now I print them off fairly small because I want to put a bunch of them on one page. But that's what I've done, and that really helps to give me, you know, it's just a way to kickstart your color schemes or color ideas. Or it also, for me, it opens up my ability to observe and to see what's around me, such as these cones of yarn. I used to have a machine knitting store, and that's how we sold yarn, were on the cones. And so seeing that brings back a fond memory for me. You know, my dad taught floriculture at the university for many years, and so the flowers and the vegetables and things bring back really fond memories. So, you know, and the roses and things like that. So not only does this provide me with inspiration, but it also kind of cues up for me, some good memories. It triggers some good memories. And the ones that don't trigger good memories, I just don't stick in my book. So I have some here that are ready to go in the book, which, you know, like I said, I got this far and then I didn't get any further, but it doesn't mean that I can't continue. So what I did on this one is I decided to select this color scheme right here. And it's only a way to inspire, okay? It is a way to inspire. You will see a similar color scheme, not the same, but similar. And so this is what I did based on this little swatch of colors right here, okay? So I pulled out and I used only craft paints. I'm just using craft paints for most of this. And I matched these colors, kind of, you know, with whatever I had. Hi, Kathleen. Yeah, it's a great idea, don't you think? I think it is. You know, these are the swatches from Design Seeds. And I don't have the link, but I will open the links here. And if somebody wants to put in the link for Design Seeds, it seems like it's design-seeds, but I don't know if that's correct. So if somebody has the link for Design Seeds, they can stick it in the chat. So that's what I did. I just pulled, so hopefully you can see the reference to this strip of color combination. So as I said, it's not the same, but it is similar to what those colors are. But I would not have necessarily put all those colors together had I not looked at this and pulled those colors out of my stash of stuff. So there you go. That is that one. And then this one was just one I wanted to play around with different colors of fluorescent or neon colors. And so this is done with, this came out of my head. This didn't come out of the Design Seeds. Let me pull the colors and show you which colors these are. Wrong bin. I need a better way to organize my paint, I have to tell you. On this one, I have peony pink, I have citron green, I have sizzling pink. I used this soy paint in sunflower. Thanks, Miko, that's great. And Terry, thank you both. And I used torrid orange, and I used scorching yellow. I think those were all the colors I used on this one. And so you can see those colors in here. And then the stuff on the top, the design on the top is, I used one of these little Fineline bottles, and this happens to be the standard tip. There's also one that's finer than this. And in this bottle I have Createx Airbrush Opaque Black Paint. So that's what's in here, and that's literally, I just doodled all over this paper after it was done. So this doesn't, on the camera, it doesn't show quite the range of color that there is in actuality, but you know, you get the idea. Someday I'm going to have better cameras, but today these are the cameras I have. This one, you can almost see that there's a design on here, and that's done with another one of the Fineline bottles, and this one has cobalt teal, the golden cobalt teal that I still had. And it has, this is the golden fluid acrylic with, I think I put a little bit of water in it, as I recall. It's been too long ago. I don't remember, to tell you the truth, what I put in there. And I just drew arrows going all different directions. So let me see if I can show this to you a little bit better, so that you can see that, yeah, you can get a good look at the arrows. So I drew curvy arrows going all different directions. And then I also splattered on top of this. You can see it had a big splatter with some thin black paint. So I really splattered, as opposed to flicking the paint. I was throwing paint at it, which I always have to do outside my house because it goes everywhere. But they, so the cobalt teal arrows on the top are not, you know, too totally obvious, but they are there and give a different dimension. Okay, so there's that one, and here is the other one. You can get a little bit better idea of the color on this one with this camera here. Okay, so you can kind of see it's just very, very doodly pattern. Very, very doodly. Okay. Splatters, drips, and splots. That's right. Now on this one, on this piece, this was like citron and the scorching yellow neon and sea breeze and peony pink and some of that soy paint in the yellow sunflower color, and then some green. And the green that I used in this was the Dilutions Cut Grass. So that's what I used for the green in this one. And then what I went over it with was the Createx Airbrush Opaque White. So if you have golden airbrush paints, that will work fine too. But what I had in my studio was the Createx version, and so that's what I used. Okay. All right. So here's the little envelope that I created out of that same paper. So this is the other half of this. So this came out of one width of the grocery sack. And so that's kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but we're going to start out and we're going to put some paint on. So we're going to play with some paint ideas. Alright, so I thought the first thing that we would do is, on this one, I thought I'll play with some Dilutions paints on this. So the colors I'm going to use are, I'm going to use Crushed Grape and Bubblegum Pink and Vibrant Turquoise, and then maybe come back over it with some White Linen. So that's what I'm going to use. Thank you, Linda. And then I'm going to use, to apply the paint, you can do anything. You can use any kind of you can use a brush, you can do whatever. I'm going to scrape it on because I find I can get the thinnest application of paint that way. And so that's what I'm using, is a tool to scrape the paint on. This happens to be a Catalyst, and this is the 04 Mini. which it has a short handle, which I particularly like. And those ones with the really long handle that are great for canvases are not so great when you're working at a table. And so I particularly like using this, but you could use a credit card, you could use one of the Bondo scrapers, you could do anything, but this is what we're working with today. So I'm going to start with purple, and Miko's probably going to try and take my paint away from me because Miko's a purple person. Miko loves color. So I upended it so that I could get some paint in the lid. And I'm going to work out of the lid and set the container off to the side. And then I'm just going to paint. And I'm trying to use, my intention is to use a light application of paint and scrape it out thin. So it's a thin application of paint because I want this to dry, and another reason I'm using dilutions is because they dry incredibly fast. And so that's one of the reasons I'm using them. And I do turn this, and this technique of doing this way uses very little paint. And so I would keep turning this so that you don't have any right or wrong side developing, you know, so you don't have your pattern, you know, getting like everything going up one direction, because you tend to do that if you work in the same direction all the time. So, but what I don't want to do is cover every little bit of the space. I want some of the craft paper to still stay. Now, if you don't have access to brown paper sacks, you can also get brown paper wrapping paper. It comes in a couple of different weights, and the heavier one is the one that would work well for doing this kind of thing because you want more weight. Okay. So you can see that I've got some places here where I've got more paint on than I intended to, but all will be well. Hi, Pavla. Hey, Tam. Purple makes everything pretty. My mother would have agreed with that. Totally, Nico. Totally. My mom loved purple and lavender. Those were her two favorite colors. And she was so pretty in them. Okay, now I'm going to put this away. And I'm going to keep a baby wipe handy and clean off my catalyst tool between colors. Okay, so just kind of keep it cleaned off so you don't have the paint drying on the tool. And I'm going to hit it with a little bit of heat just to make sure we get it dry, so I don't have to work so hard in the end to get it dry. So just turn it around and you can tell when the paint is dry because it won't be shiny anymore. It'll be dry enough to keep moving. And by the way, I put on gloves in a bottle to start with so that when these heavily pigmented paints get on my skin, I've got a shot at getting them off my skin easily. And so I use those gloves in the bottle for most things. It really does help release the ink and the paint and so forth from your skin, and it absorbs into your skin very quickly, So you can even use them, the gloves in the bottle, you can even put on if you're working with fabric, which is really a nice thing. Okay, so what we're going to do is now I'm going to go to this one, which is Vibrant Turquoise. Let's see if I've got any in the lid. Hopefully. Not much. Alright, let's see if we got enough. Okay, so I'm going to use what's in the lid. I'm going to work out of the lid. Keep the container far away so you don't accidentally knock it over, Barb. And so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add turquoise. And any place where I ended up with big splotches of purple, I can break it up with other colors. So if anybody has any questions, be sure you put them in all caps in the chat. That would be lovely, so then I can see. It will get my attention. So what are you guys doing today? I hope you're working on art projects and having a good day. You can't do anything about what's going on out in the stratosphere today, so you might as well do something creative. That is always my solution to stress and garbage going on in the world. That or writing. That is my other thing. I get out my pen and paper and my trusty composition notebook and I spill my guts into my composition notebook. And if it's really ugly, which it is sometimes, then I get out the black gesso and I gesso over it. And I can probably show you an example of that. Hang on a minute and I probably can show you that. Here is an example of exactly what I'm talking about. Let me finish scraping this paint and then I'll show you what I mean. I'm just spreading this out so that it will dry nicely. Let me cap this. Jan is stamping tags. Cool. Jan, you were doing some really nice tags. Jean's in front of the fan. Anita's cleaning house. That doesn't sound so creative. That brown, if you're talking brown dilutions, Miko, is that what you're talking about? That makes the most beautiful pinky color if you use it, combine it with white. It's really a beautiful color. Add a little more of the pink to it. I don't know if that's what you're talking about or not, but I'm just cleaning up a smidge here. So this is exactly what I was talking about. So this is where, this page right here is where I add some very, very ugly writing. I do a lot of writing. I spill a lot of angst and garbage into here. I filled a number of composition notebooks this way. But this was the kind of thing that I didn't even want to ever see again. And so I got out the black gesso and I gessoed over the top of it. And then that still was, you know, it still was ugly to me because now it just was a big black splotch. So I went back and I cut out roses and I painted stems with Inca gold and I think it was green gold or something like that. I put some Inca gold in the background. I tied a little bow out of some of my paste papers and I transformed it into something that was pretty. And so now that page has a good feeling to me and not the icky feeling, but the icky stuff got out of me so that I didn't have to carry it around with me. So that's just an idea. Just a thought. Just a thought. Because there are times when you don't want anybody to find your written words because they are too ugly, but you need to get them out, and you need to not censor yourself, in my opinion. And because that's how you get it out of you. So don't censor yourself, just write, and write every ugly thing. Believe me, I've spent my fair share of time asking God to forgive me for some of the stuff I wrote or said. It's true. It's true. Sometimes my vocabulary internally has not been made up of very many letters. If you know what I mean. Okay. So this is dry enough. And then I'm going to go to, I think I'm going to go next to the white. So this is the Dilutions White Linen. White Linen. Again, I'm going to work out of the lid. And I'm just barely picking up paint. Yeah, well, I don't have that, Erica. I don't have all that, so I got to do that for myself. You know what I mean? I'm probably going to go a little heavier with the white here. I can always come back and use some of the other colors back on top of it again, but I still want to have the effect that the craft paper underneath gives to the paint. So it just gives another dimension because it tones down these very, very bright colors right off the bat, which is kind of nice in a way, you know? Just because it gives you another way to handle the color. Hey Cheryl, haven't seen you for a while. Nice to see you. I'm painting paper sacks, the kind you get from the grocery store. And we're going to transform them into little recycled bags or envelopes, however you choose to call them. And it's good to go off the edges, although most of the time I've been trimming the edges away. So if I'm not, you know, totally off the edge, I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, the white just really helps. You can't worry about what it looks like at this stage. You just have to go and go and go until you go, oh, I think it's done. That's how you do it. That's how I do it anyway. And seeing as how I'm making it up as I go along, that's what worked for me. Because as I said, the idea is based on an inspiration from the Green Craft magazine. But taking it off in whatever direction I decide to go. I hear you, Cheryl. I understand totally. Not to be just totally self-serving, but if you don't have a copy of my book, it might be a good idea. It might be helpful. Normal doesn't live here anymore. You can get it on Amazon, and it is written about being the family caregiver, so might be helpful. So what I'm going to use now is bubblegum pink. I'm going to hit this with a smidge of heat. Here, I'll show you in just a second, Anita. Hang on just a moment. This is the magazine, Greencraft. It's put out by the Stampington Company. You can also get that book from, as an Audible book. It's on audiblebooks.com, and you can also get it's on Kindle also. So you've got choices. If you know, one way, we tried to do it in such a way that however anybody needed the information, they would have the option to have it. I mean, I still have it on my iPhone. And even though it's my book, there are moments when I go back and refer to it, you know. It's one of the great things about writing. You can put it down once and you don't have to do it again. You can come back and just, you know, reference it later, but you don't have to keep the information in your head. That's the great part about writing. For me. So now I'm using bubblegum pink. And this Catalyst tool does a really nice job of spreading the paint nice and thinly, acting like a paintbrush, but not. Not a paintbrush, but it kind of acts like it's kind of a cross between a paintbrush and a scraper, like a credit card kind of thing, or a Bondo scraper. It's kind of that cross, kind of a happy medium between the two. So at this point, if you want to have one color be, you know, more than another color, more present, more prevalent, you can do that. But even yet, in the background, in some places, you'll still see the craft paper peeking through. So it gives another tone to the whole thing. So I'm just sort of willy-nilly scraping it around. But the only reason I have a roll of the paper, but it's stored. And if you saw my storage area, you'd know why I didn't go down there to get it. And I had the brown paper sacks handy. And also because it was what they used in the magazine, which I thought was a great way to recycle the 1.5 tons of brown paper sacks that I still have into something useful. Because I tend to use tote bags. Pardon me. I tend to use tote bags, or, you know, the cloth bags that I buy at the grocery store to get groceries in. So I don't recycle the brown bags for buying food and groceries and stuff, so forth. I use cloth ones. So yeah, that's why. It's just a choice. And I like the concept of just having something that's, you know, kind of wrinkly and old, and yeah. This one is the 04 Mini. It's the 04 Mini. Okay. Hello, Larkspur Vicky, my friend. And Vicky L and L Vicky. We have 2 Vickies with L's today. That's great. Okay, I'm going to give it a little more shot of heat. I'm going to go back with the white again, and then probably a little bit of purple on the top. Now, the more layers of the Dylusions paint that you build up, the longer it takes to dry them. I'm sure that makes sense to everybody. And you can always dry it from the back a little bit too, which kind of helps. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is put a little bit more purple back on the top, and then I'm going to use the white in a different way. Now, if you want to tone this down, if something like this is too bright, then you can take a brayer and some white paint or gesso, and you can brayer over it, and that will tone it all back down. But I'm going to leave it nice and bright. Yeah, Lucky's Market is a relatively new grocery store that we have here in our town. It's a nice store, and they have a lot of organic produce and so forth that I really appreciate them having. You have a nice supplement section, and not everything is organic, but they do have an organic, bigger organic section than a lot of the regular grocery stores, which is great. So at this point, I'm going to kind of try to get the edges of the paper as much as I can, just simply to kind of go over it a little bit, kind of fill in the gaps here and there. If I don't get every single edge, I'm not going to worry about it too much. So I say get out your paints. Everybody can do this, and this is something that doesn't take any thought, really. Doesn't take any brain power to figure stuff out. You just need to dry between colors, and if you do that, then your colors are gonna stay relatively clear. You know, you're not going to turn things into mud if you just dry between layers of color. Thanks, Miko. Like I said earlier, I really like these that have the shorter handles because I don't do a lot of canvases. If I was working on a canvas and was, you know, standing away from the canvas, that would be a different situation. But because I mostly work at my table or standing at my table, I prefer those shorter handled paintbrushes and tools and things like that. Hey, Darcy. Nice to see you. It is great to have everybody here. I really appreciate you being here. So, do you see the difference in what this section looks like versus the rest of it? It almost has that appearance of the melty crayon kind of look about it. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's just what I like, because if I don't have the handle in this one, I think the handle comes out. I think. I don't remember for sure. I took it out of the long-handled ones because I just don't use them that way. And I'm always whacking myself in the face with the long handles. But if you take the handle out of this, then you're trying to hang on to this little bitty blade, and that to me is, your hand cramps up. This way at least you have some support for your hand, you know, with the handle, which is nice. Okay, so good enough is good enough here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put that away, and then I'm going to hit it with a little heat. Now this is the seam right here. This is the seam where the bag is glued together, and you know, that's just part of, you have to embrace the charm of the recycled thing, the recycled object. And let that be part of what you're doing. So we'll do that. Yeah, earrings and on canvas or paper, that would be great. So is my volume not cooperating for you guys? Hi, Nomadic Rose. And once again, I have forgotten Nomadic Rose's name. Oh, mercy, I need to write it down. I need to write it down. Yeah, handmade flowers would be great. Or you could use some of the, you know, die cuts, the Tim Holtz tattered florals, and you could make some really cool flowers that way. This would make an excellent journal cover, you know, the brown paper. I like the texture of things, the physical texture and the visual texture both. Okay, Pauline, I almost said that, Pauline, but then I was like, I'm going to screw it up. I just know it. So Darcy UK, it must be something on your end. If they're not having any trouble, it must be something on your end for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, I'm always amazed that the volume and everything gets from here to where it goes in good shape, and I'm always grateful. Okay, so it's pretty well dry. Pretty dry. So I'm going to, because I didn't earlier, I'm going to get a stamp out. I'm going to stamp a little bit. So let me get a stamp. Just in an effort to get them to show up, I'm going to use something that's kind of a solid stamp. We'll see if it shows. We're going to use this flower, and I'm going to use archival black ink. I think it might be the best to show up. So what I'm after is not, oh, whoops, that was almost a bad mistake. That was almost bad. I'm not after a whole lot of impression, you know, like I'm not stamping like Rachel does. Those of you guys that know Rachel know what I mean. She does beautiful stamping. So I have no cushion under this because what I'm after is just something as another layer. That's a good idea, Anita K. She said she could see this technique for Christmas tree shaped ornament. Yeah, that'd be great. So I want some of them, or a lot of them, to kind of almost give the appearance that they're kind of peeking, you know, peeking out of some of the, in and out of some of the colors. And we're just making a piece of paper, therefore it is going to, think of it as in terms of making an overall sheet, because that's what we're doing. So you don't, that's why I'm constantly turning it, so I avoid getting like the this way is up kind of thing, you know, trying to avoid that if possible. Mike is straight ahead of me. Straight ahead and up. Now, when I turn away to dig for something, yeah, the sound's going to get a little dimmer because I've turned away from the microphone. That's true. Totally true. Okay, so we might do one more of these little flower forms here. If it's lighter in color, you could always stamp it with a text stamp. That would be nice. So you can do that, of course. Now when this ink is totally dry, it's going to be permanent, but it does need to totally dry. So we'll shoot it with a little heat here in a second. But I think this is a nice stamp. I think it's an old Stampin' Up set that I bought. For the ripe old price of $3. This was the set that I bought at a garage sale type thing. I have the color bursts, which we're going to do something with here one of these days soon. I don't have the Brusho, but I do have the color bursts, so we're going to play with those here before long. I have the 6 original colors. I don't have the newest ones, but I have the original colors, so they're pretty amazing things. When you're used to working with liquid pigments and then you start working with powdered pigments, it's kind of a game changer, you know? Okay, I think those are probably pretty dry. I know they're dark. I know it's hard for you to see them, but you get the concept, I think. So we're going to go to white. Pam says she has them both and they're equally fun. Nice. Okay, I'm going to get another stamping tool. Be right back. I want something that's a little bit smaller than what we have here. So this is a spool, a thread spool. Thanks, Cheryl. So I'm going to use some white. Oop, where did I do with my palette? Oh, I hadn't used it yet. Like, oh, what did I do with the palette? Okay, so what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to get some of the white Dilutions paint out. And I'm going to spread it on my palette this time. I'm going to just spread it around a little bit on the palette. Now this is both dangerous and wonderful because it will immediately start drying on me, as any acrylic paint would. So you have a certain amount of time to be able to work. Okay, so we're going to call that part good. And I'm going to hit it with the heat again, so we just make sure we get this dry. Okay, it's not totally dry, but it's, you know, dry enough. And then to do the outline, you know, scribbly kind of thing, I'm going to use the white Createx airbrush paint. So this is the standard tip. And then I'm just going to start playing. And so I'm probably just going to do flower forms on this one because it's just scribbles. So think of it as frosting the cake. Of course, you don't have to do this part. And I am barely putting any pressure on this bottle to make the scribbles. I mean, barely. Because I don't want this to take all day and all night to dry. And also, I don't want to take a long time doing it. Okay, and then I'm going to come back and just add some sort of something or other in here. So maybe we'll do this. Try to keep your hands out of it. So it just gives some sparkle. Now, if the The underlying colors, if they were lighter, then you can use a color like black or the cobalt teal that I showed you. But because this is dark, then that's why I'm using white. I'm sure that would be obvious, but in case you wondered why I chose white, that's why. So I just keep turning and adding, and if you stick your hand in it, then wipe your hand off. Otherwise, you may end up with it going places that you didn't want it to go. And when you're looking at things like this, when you're looking at things where you're trying to achieve an overall pattern of whatever, color and so forth, what you want to do is look at it, and I find it helpful to squint my eyes. And if I squint my eyes, then it will show me where there are blank spots or things, you know, where I've got too much of something or not enough of something. You know, it will show me those areas. What's in that bottle, in the white bottle, is Createx Airbrush Opaque White Paint. And in this one, I have Golden Fluid Acrylic Cobalt Teal. And I think there was probably a little water in here. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. It's been too long since I put it in here. But let's put a few little cobalt teal polka dots here. Now, when you get this white scribbly stuff going on, it takes a little while for this to dry. So, this is not going to be the one that we're actually going to turn into something because it's too wet. And it doesn't take really a long time for this to dry, but it does take a little while. And I find it's a little better if you let that kind of stuff, the white and the teal color, I find it's a little bit better when I do this if I let it dry naturally rather than having to do heat gun it, because the heat gun tends to dry only the top, you know, it doesn't get all the way down as far as it needs to go. When in doubt, dot, you know. Okay, I think I might have gotten them all. We'll find out as soon as I hold it up to the camera. Yep, it works with Christmas tree lights too. It sure does. If you're putting Christmas tree lights on a tree, it works great for that, doesn't it? Squint your eyes. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at this one in the other camera where you can see it a little closer. This piece in here is where the two pieces of paper are glued. This is the seam where the brown paper sack is glued together. So that's what that is that you're seeing. So all of that scrapey stuff tends to just kind of blend in and doesn't have all of that scrapey look to it, in my opinion, once you get the other stuff on the top of it. Okay. Hi, Carol. Welcome. Glad you're here. So that is that piece. So that's, I think I'm pleased with that, and it's different than anything else I've done. So I like it. I like it. Okay, so I'm going to set this one to the side, and maybe we'll do one more, because why not? Because we can. Because we can. How many do I have? I have 2 more pieces of paper. Maybe we'll do 2 more. So I'm going to set this one to the side and let it dry. So let's use, let's go back to this, which is my Design Seeds inspiration. And let's leaf through here and see what we might find. This is a nice color combination. And that would incorporate the craft color quite nicely. This is nice too. They're all nice. What am I saying? They're all nice. I think I have all these colors that I can put my hand on pretty quickly. Let's maybe do that one or something similar. So we need a light yellow. We need like a golden yellow. And then maybe a raw sienna kind of color. I'm just pulling out, that's burnt sienna. I'm just pulling out paint colors. Okay. Okay, let's work with those and see what happens. You need polyurethane to seal the painted canvas. I am not familiar with that, so I don't know. I don't know, Miko. I would think you could, if it was me, I'd seal it with a water-based sealer. Larkspur Vicky might know the answer to that. She's done tons of canvases. What we're doing, what we're headed for, is we're making paper in order to recycle the painted paper, which is brown grocery sack. We're recycling them into envelopes. Like this. Okay, so that is brown paper sack. You can still see the craft paper made into a little envelope inspired by the latest issue of Green Craft magazine. Hi, Josie. Nice to see you. So here are the ones that I've done so far. There's this one and that one, and then the one you just saw with the purples, and this one. Hey, Joyce. Hi, Imelda. All right, so that's what we're playing with. So we're gonna see if we can follow this Design Seeds color combination. This doesn't take a whole lot of paint, so I'm going to put out very much on my palette. This is what I'm using is a disposable palette. Happens to be by Strathmore palette paper. Oops, sorry. Banged the camera. So I'm just going to leave the lids open on my paints, and that way if I need more, I can get to them easily. These two are so incredibly close. We'll see how they look when they go on the paper together. May have to make another choice. May have to make a better choice. Those are rather close in tone as well. So let's look at this one more time. Okay, so this is kind of, whoops, sorry, help if it was on camera, wouldn't it? So this, the color combination that I'm pulling out the colors from. So we'll see. Might work, it might not. Let's see. Alright, so I've squirted a little bit on this palette. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. The palette will probably be where you can't see it because I'm going to set it over to my left. Yeah, you won't be able to see it. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to start with the light color. And I'm going to do the same thing I did, exactly what I did before. I'm just going to use this Catalyst scraping tool. Catalyst, I don't know what its actual name is. It's Catalyst by Princeton. They probably have a name. Maybe it's Blade. Is it a blade? Anybody know what they call these things? What the proper term is for them? Now I'm using craft paints, and so these sink into the paper and they dry very quickly. I'm still going to spread them out as much as possible. It's a rubber spatula. Okay. It's a Princeton Catalyst rubber spatula then. That's what we'll call it. Okay, that was the soy. This was soy paint and the color was sunflower. That's what I used so far. Rubber thingy. We should have a naming contest for this, shouldn't we? Alright, let's see if this one shows any differently. Yeah, it does a little bit. This color is Americana Cadmium Yellow. It's a little different in color. I don't think it shows very much to you guys, but it's a little more golden yellow in color. The other one was a little more lemon yellow in color. So what are they called, Darcy? Do you know? Do they have a name for these? I know the ones that, like I use on a jelly plate, I think are called wedges, the Catalyst wedges, but I don't know. This is a wedge shape, but I don't think it's called that. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what its real name is, what its proper name is. I like the soy paints. Yeah, I do. The only reason I have them is because they were selling them out, getting rid of them at a local store, so that's why I tried them, and then I was like, well, I'm kind of sorry you guys are getting rid of these because I liked them. Okay, I'm going to show this to you up close so that you can see maybe the color difference. This color is the Americana Cadmium Yellow, and this color is the soy sunflower Catalyst Blade. Okay. Call it George. So the colors are very similar, but there is a difference. Okay, let's go to this color that is raw sienna. Looks like baby poop. Not quite. Yellow ochre is more like baby poop. This reminds me of something else, but I won't tell you what that is because that would be rude. It's a lovely color though. When I was first learning about painting back a long time ago, I was learning with oil paints, and the person who was the teacher of the class was very good at associating things. And I'll tell you, some of those associations just never leave you. It does kind of have that fall look about it, doesn't it? This would be a good one to use the Dilutions Brown on. I don't want to get it too dark if I can avoid it, so maybe I won't do that on this one, but we can always come back and add more brown if we need it. So let's go with the darkest green here and there. The cicadas here are just crazy right now. I don't think this is their 7-year drive you crazy year, but they have really been tuning up the last few weeks, and Muppet hates them. Oh my goodness. She got a hold of one that must have been on its last leg a few nights ago when she was outside, and it had come to the light, and because it was dark outside, and it had come to the porch light, and her prey drive is so incredibly strong. I mean, she is, if it comes in our yard, it is fair game to her, of course, and her prey drive ignites so strongly that you can't stop her. So anyway, she went after this cicada that was laying on the deck, and of course when she got a hold of it, it starts squalling and carrying on. Well, then that freaked her out. She didn't quite know what to do with that. I mean, she did not know what to do about that. It's screeching, and then she'd spit it out, you know, and then it would, then she'd have to go after it again because it would start flapping its wings, and she'd have to go after it, and then it would start squealing. Oh, it was quite the comedy routine there for a little bit, because I'm trying to get her in the house to leave the thing alone. And yeah, it was crazy there for a little bit. And she doesn't like him. And I guess it was yesterday, for the first time in weeks, I had the windows open. And the cicadas were, you know, it was middle of the day, and boy, they were really tuning up for whatever reason. And she all of a sudden, she's not used to the windows being open in the house, you know. And so all of a sudden she stops. I mean, it was almost like she was pointing, and I don't think she has any kind of ancestry in her lineage, you know, that's a pointing kind of dog. But she stopped dead still, and her ears are up, and she is listening and listening. I was like, she's going to get herself one of those squalling bugs. All right, so So there is that color of green. So I'm going to go to the lightest color of green and see if it shows. It's kind of a nice color. So the colors of green I've used, the darkest one was forest green. These are Americana colors. The next one I used is Hauser medium green. And this one is Hauser light green. So those are the greens that I was using here. This is a nice combination. You'd think those design seed people really knew what they were doing, wouldn't you? Oh, it's 17 years. Okay, 17. I was thinking it was 7. 17. Well, Pam, that is interesting information. Sorry, I was reading the chat. Anybody watching the recording, if I just suddenly stop and stop talking and everything, it's because I'm reading the chat. That's what happens. I'm reading the chat. And I'm telling you, they've been really tuning up lately. And Muppet is not happy about it. She would like for them to go back wherever they came from. She must have been stung by a bug, you know, a wasp or a bee or something, because she is very, very skeptical of anything that swoops her. You know, once in a while a bird will swoop down and swoop her. Boy, she doesn't care. She doesn't think that's cool at all. She doesn't think that is cool one tiny bit. But this is a good place. I mean, grocery bags, you know, you pay for them when you get your groceries, of course. It's not like they're free, but then you gotta figure out what to do with them. Are you gonna store them? Are you gonna use them? Are you gonna, you know, what are you gonna do with them? It's kind of a nice art supply that you can do, and you can try out different color combinations. Why not? I think they'd make great journal covers. I think it would cover a composition notebook beautifully. I like that it has some texture because it's kind of scribbly. You know, it's already wrinkled up, so it has that scribbly kind of feel to it. And like Miko said earlier, it would be great for making paper flowers. I mean, they would make excellent journal pages also. So you could do journal pages with them, and then, you know, you could add you could make mini books out of them and put photo mats on top of them, and, you know, you could do all kinds of things. Okay. So let's look at, I need another baby wipe. No, our Walmart only does plastic bags here. Yeah, at least here. Maybe they do paper bags elsewhere, but they don't here. Okay, so we're gonna put the lids back on these. It has definitely warmed up here now, let me tell you. See what temperature we have at the moment. My weather app's not coming up. Must be because I have something else happening. Okay. So let's take a look at our inspiration palette and see how close we came, shall we? Clean up my mat here. If you don't have a non-stick craft sheet and you're working with paints and stuff, I highly recommend that you get one. I do. Because they really can save your sanity and your table. Okay, here's our inspiration palette. Hey, Gina. And here is what we ended up doing. That's reasonably close to this. Yeah, so not bad. Not bad, huh? Okay, so let's play with this one a little bit. Maybe we'll do... Get some inks. Get some ink pads here. We use coffee for our stamping ink this time. So we use coffee, and I need to get a stamp, so I'll be right back. Maybe we'll use some of these. This set was a $2 set from the same garage sale type thing. It does look pretty good, doesn't it? It looked pretty good. Okay, so let's use these. We have tranquility, love, harmony, and wisdom. How about, let's use harmony in honor of Harmony that used to come to our streams. I haven't seen her in ages. So, Harmony, if by some chance you happen to be seeing this stream, would just know that we're thinking about you. So just a little stampage here and there. Hither and thither. And the reason this paper is under here is in case I want to run off the edge like that. That way I don't stamp my craft sheet. By the time I'm done streaming, I have so little room left in my space because everything encroaches closer and closer and closer into my space. No, that buzzing sound is, that is the cicadas tuning up in the background. I did have music on earlier, but when we record, I don't record the music. That would be a no-no. I don't know if this really is Harmony, but you know, that's what it says on the stamp, so we're just gonna go with it, people. We're just gonna go with it. Okay, pretty much that's good. Okay, and they go in waves where they get really, really loud. The wave is starting where it comes in. I mean, it's just like the wave in a stadium, you know, where it gets, you can just hear the rise and fall of the sound. It's pretty incredible. Space invasion, exactly. Okay, so we've stamped that. So now let's go over it. Let's do black this time for the patterning. Just thinking. So this is black Createx Airbrush opaque black paint in this standard tip Fineline applicator bottle. That's a mouthful. Alright, so let's just do some spirals. Alright, so now let's see. Well, I bet you guys didn't know that you were going to get the cicada education today, did you? That would be Muppet shaking herself and making her tags jingle. She's up from her nap now, apparently. So just adding some dots here and there. Just for something something. Not every single place, but some places. So we got dots. We got dots. You never know what you're going to learn on a stream, do you? Just never know. So what I'm doing, I mean, you could do all the same kind of thing with stencils and things like that. I'm just adding a little contrast of pattern here and there by adding some little straight line work, sort of straight line, sort of straight-ish. Okay, so we're going to call that one done, because why not? And I could come back with white or some other color and we could do some more stuff, but I'm going to let that sit and just see what it does. Looks kind of camouflagey. So let's go back to the one we did earlier just so you can see. We'll take a look and see how dry it is. Might be dry enough to do something with it. Yep, it's dry. It's dry, so we'll do something with this one, shall we? All right. Why not? Why not? I say why not. Okie doke. I need... I have a note here to myself somewhere. I need one that's 5 1/4 inches wide. So let's see where that lands on this. Thanks, Josie. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fold this in half, like so. Well, I don't want to go in half. I want to have the flap. So I'm going to actually not fold it in half. I'm going to leave the flap. Let's see. I may need to go the other way. Let's see if we can go this way. I have a narrow flap. How's that going to work? Nope. Okay. All right. I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to add a flap onto it. See how it works. If it doesn't work the way I want it to, I'll make a new one. I'll just make another one. We'll just make another one. Why not? We can do it because we know how. Because we know how. All right. So I'm going to, I need 5 1/4. This is a 6-inch ruler. I need 5 1/4 inches. And so I'm going to go 5 1/2 because I need to be able to trim off this edge over here. So I'm going to go 5 1/2. And this may not work out at all. And if it doesn't, oh well. Right? Thanks, Lynn. Nice, Janet. Janet's becoming a cicada expert. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to cut this one down to 5 1/4. Yes. And line it up at the bottom, 5 1/4. Now the only thing about these paints is that they are sticky, kind of, you know, they're kind of grabby. So they want to stick to your ruler and everything. so we have that. Let's see what we can do with this one here. Maybe I'm going to cut this off and use this part where it is glued onto the other one. Let's see what that does. May not work at all. May not work at all. Then again, it may work fine. Okay, that gives us another envelope. And then this, probably glue that and make that and see if that'll work as the flap that comes down. This might come down over the top of that. Let's try. Just thinking out loud, don't mind me. This might not work at all, you never know. Okay, and if I put that on there and then let that come over, is that big enough for this? Let's see. That comes down over here like this. It might work. Well, I don't know, but it's possible. It's possible. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to attach this. I'll trim it off in a little bit, but I'm going to attach this because I need to make this a little bit longer. So I'm going to attach this and then I'll cut it off. And the way I'm going to attach it is I'm going to use some washi tape that I made a while back. So I'm going to see what I have here in my stash of washi style tape. Let's see how this works, shall we? All right. I like the little hands on there, so we'll put the hands on there. Have to trim it a little bit. Okay, I'm just thinking to myself, just talk amongst yourselves. As I said, this might not work at all. Okay, so I'm going to use this piece of tape. I'm going to turn it over, actually. And I'm going to lay it on here. We'll see if this works, shall we? So I'm going to put this here. Now if I can get it to stop sticking to my fingers. Like a bad booger. You can't get it off your hand. All right, you can just stay there and be attached to that. Okay, I'm going to put this on here like. So, we'll see how that works. Shall we? We shall. And then I'm going to put this on here. So this tape, my theory is it's going to act like a hinge. That's the theory, but you know, people, it could go horribly wrong at any time. Looks like it might work. Okay, all right, so far so good. This is a skewer, a wooden skewer that I use to point to things. I have two of them. I have a light one and a dark one. They're just wooden skewers, and they're like that so that they don't make a lot of noise when I'm filming. That's why they're like that. That's why they're wood as opposed to metal. What kinds of things do you knit, Carol? This could probably be the most boring stream anybody ever saw when it gets to this part. Okay, so that's going to come down like so. Well, it might not, it might work. People, it might work. All right, let's see. Will this fit in here? You know, I think it'll work okay. I think it'll work all right. Okay. So what I'm doing is obviously making an envelope for that little card. Okay, so I've just creased it with my fingers. Bye, Miko. So I've creased it with my fingers, and while we're at it, let's make a smaller one from this one. Now, did I even the edge? No, I did not even the edge of this one. So let's even up this other side. So I'm going to just cut off just a smidgen, just so it's evened up on this other side. Bye, Miss Miko. Okay, so we have that. On this one, I'm just going to bring it down. So it's going to be a smaller envelope. So I'm going to bring it down. So I have the flap to come down over. Okay, and so there was a little crease here that I did before, but it's like, oh well, big deal. And then I'm going to pull this down to be my flip flap. My flip flap over the little envelope business. Okay, so it's going to come down like that. And then I'm going to angle these off. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to angle it to start with. And then if you want to be really picky about it, you take the part that you cut off. See, I made an angle. You take the part you cut off and you put it over here on this side, this way. And you line it up on the side and the bottom, and that gives you the pretty close to the exact same angle that you had on the other side. I mean, bearing in mind that you're holding this with your fingers, so it's close, you know, but it's not necessarily exact. Okay, so we got that. Now I like to put a little piece of washi tape across here, which is what's on this one. This is a little bit of tape across here to decorate it a little bit. So let's see if we got one that we can use on there. Maybe we'll use that one, huh? Maybe we'll use this one. Because that kind of goes with the whole color scheme. The whole color scheme of things. So we're going to cut that much. Carol knits fine lace shawls, socks, and you spin your own yarn too. You and Bren need to communicate. She is a knitter, spinner. Built her own spinning, wheel. Yeah. She does beautiful spinning. I bet you do as well. That's great. Okay, so I have this little teeny piece of washi tape left. I'm just going to stick it there for a moment. So there is my tape on that one. So on this one, we have the tape hinge. I think I'm not going to put any more washi tape on that. Maybe I'll put some on the little the little windy round parts. I made the washi with deli wrap, and I put score tape on the back. But it's deli paper, deli wrap, deli paper. Okay, so here is our other one, like so. Okay, so we have two that, I got two of these out of here, and then I have the extras to be able to make the little windy round parts that probably have a name that I don't know what it is. Alrighty, so the next thing I'm going to do, and this is where I just start to go off in all directions. So don't give me a bunch of grief about this, anybody, because I totally make it up as I go along. I'm going to put these my cutting mat away, and my tool, my rotary tool, which is closed. And then I'm going to get my sewing machine. Okay? Okay. So, give me a second here. I'm telling you, I got stuff everywhere. 309 here. Got stuff everywhere. Let me clear the decks a little bit. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the sides of these. Now, in order to sew these, you can't use pins to hold things together on paper, so I'm using paper clips. So I'm going to get this set up ready to sew, and I'm going to put a couple of paper clips on here to hold them. Okay? So I'm using paper clips because they are flat. You could use pinch type clamps or bookbinding clamps and things like that also, but what I like about these is that they're nice and flat. That's right, Vicky, no grief for me, no grief. It's drama-free Friday after all, don't you know? It's drama-free Friday. Now, these paints, the dimensional, you know, the airbrush paints and stuff that I put on using these little bottles tend to have some dimension, although they're not really dimensional paints. They do tend to have some dimension. And they can get a little sticky against the surface of your sewing machine. So I'm just telling you that so that you'll not be shocked by that. All right, let me pull in my sewing machine here. And I'm going to put on my slide-on table because it's easier to work on. Uh-oh. Can't see what I'm doing. There we go. I hit a button. I couldn't see what I was doing for a minute. Okay. Now, takes a minute to set all this contraption up. I did make my apron. Yes, I did. It has all different kinds of mixed media techniques on it. I don't know if you can see it. And everything is labeled with what it is. Like this up here, it says noodles. That's what these are. That's what this is. So it's got the mixed media techniques on it, and then it's also labeled. Okay. I think you can see that. I have variegated thread in the machine. And once I get things ready to go here, I'm using a stitch length that's a little bit longer than a normal stitch length. Like, it's a little longer than what you use to sew up clothing. And so I don't have to poke too many holes in the paper. I'm starting in a little bit from the top edge, and I'm going to back up a few stitches, and then I'm going to come forward. And if it gets sticky, if the paper wants to hesitate and not move forward, you kind of have to just encourage it, help it a little bit. Okay, this thing that I put over in the side of the machine, if you watch right here, I don't have my hands at the machine. Watch the presser foot, and you'll see it raise. That's what that lever does. It's part of the hands-free system of the Bernina sewing machine, which is now used in many other machines as well. But Bernina had the patent on it for many, many years. But now many other machines have. The patent ran out, and so other companies were able to use that technology to incorporate into their machines. But that's what it does. It enables you to do hands-free sewing, because you see the foot's going up and down. I'm doing it with my knee. Hi, AJ. I'm making an envelopes from grocery bags, recycled brown paper grocery sacks. Okay, again, I'm starting in from the edge. I'm going to back up and then come forward. Be sure that you don't stitch over the paper clips or pins. Okay, come on. You do have to encourage it, because if you have a machine that has, if you have a presser foot that has a non-stick coating on the bottom, this would be the time to use it. I don't have one of those, so I'm having to encourage the paper, because the paint is, it's not that it's wet, it's just sticky. So the foot wants to hang up. It's like sewing on plastic, because that's what it is. You would not believe how much time it saves you when you use. People have a hard time getting used to it sometimes, but the amount of time it can save you when you sew is amazing. Okay, so we have the stitching is here along the sides. That now makes it into a little envelope, okay? And just for fun, I'm going to then stitch down the sides of the flap and around. Just because I like it. Just because I like it. Okay, so I can start where that stitching ends. Yeah, I'll start where that ends. Sorry, talking to myself a minute. Sewing on paper is not hard, but if you are asking the machine to do something it's not built for, you're going to have to encourage it, help it a little bit. And you don't want to sew with a real small stitch length, because if you do, you perforate the paper too much. Okay? Thanks, AJ. Okay, so I've stitched around, you'll be able to see it better here. I've stitched around the flap. Now, when I'm stitching right here and right here, that's going through the score tape, the washi style tape made with score tape, and that gunks up your needle, okay? I mean, there's no getting around it. It gunks up your needle. So you need to have something available to clean it off. So you can have something with, you can use rubbing alcohol, the alcohol wipes. You can use something like this, the disinfecting wipes. Just something that's going to clean off the adhesive. And run down the needle. When you're cleaning a needle, run down the needle. Do not run back up, because you will snag your hand. Okay, come down. Because machines and needles do not like to stitch through adhesives that are not designed for machine stitching. Okay? I'm using a stitch length of 3 millimeters. But it could be longer. Just, I wouldn't go any shorter than a 3. Alright, so we got one more to do. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stitch the sides first, and then I'm going to stitch the flap. Now when you're machine stitching, I don't care if it's paper, fabric, whatever, the side that is closest to the needle is always going to be the more beautiful stitch, always. So you want to have that be the part, you want that part to be facing up. Now, I realize we're making a paper envelope, so it doesn't really matter a whole heck of a lot. But if somebody is going to open this, they're going to open it from this side, correct? So that's why I stitched with the top, the needle thread on this side, and why I turned it over and stitched the flap facing up. Because it just makes a prettier look. That's all. And this may not fit the card that I have in mind at all, but you know, then on the other hand, it might. If it doesn't fit, it's like, oh well. And I clip off threads because I like the threads to be clipped off. Some people let them stay on, and that's perfectly fine too. But the reason I'm using paper clips, in case you came in after I started, the paper clips are acting like pins for me. Because if I put pins in here, I'm going to poke holes in the paper, and that's not good for me. Just don't sew over the paper clips, whatever you do. The thread that I'm using is King Tut. It's a variegated cotton thread. It's a size 40. It is my favorite thread for doing, I will use it 99% of the time. Not all the time, but you know, a whole lot of the time, that is the thread that I use. For doing things like this, because I love the look. It is a thread that works every time. It's King Tut by the company Superior. It comes in a wide variety of colors. I want them all. I don't have them all, but I want them all. And it is beautiful in a satin stitch. Okay, so it's time for me to test and see if you guys are still here. I've either lulled you to sleep because there hasn't been any chat for a few minutes. Just checking. Or perhaps I lost the chat. That could be possible too. There we go. Okay, thank you. Thanks for doing that. Thank you, thank you. Okay, I'm going to trim off the threads down here. And we're going to call it good with the sewing machine. So I'm going to put it away, out of my way. What did I do with my, here it is. Okay. Okay, any questions so far? Thanks, Deb. All right, so let's finish these puppies up, shall we? Let's finish them up. So here is the one envelope with washi tape across the flap. Here's this one that is taller because I needed a taller envelope, and I washi taped. I say washi tape, it's not really washi tape. Okay, it's washi style tape that I added that flap on, and so that is flap on, flap off. So let's see, will it work? Will it work? Works pretty well. Works pretty well. It works pretty well. Yeah. Alright, so if I end up using it for that, we have that. If I don't, I don't. Okay, let's put the little whoosie what's it tie things, these little things on here. And this time I think I'm going to do some circular ones. My papers are getting in my way here. These papers have a mind of their own, let me tell you. They start going wherever they want. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, use a circle punch this time, and I'm going to see if these will cut. This is thick. Nope. All right. Okay, now, just cooperate with me, will ya? Just cooperate with me. Now, because this is taking some of the strength away from the paper, I'm probably going to add another circle behind them with some cardstock. Okay, come on, please, just give me enough here, please. Just behave. Just behave for me, will ya? There we go. Okay, so I have 4 of those, and I'm going to cut 4 cardstock circles and glue these together because I need to strengthen these a little bit. Sorry if that's just way too loud. I don't want to miss the end. It's not that exciting, Deb. It's really not. So I'm just going to add a little tacky glue because this is my favorite, one of my favorite glues. I put up a video on the website today that you can see on my website, or you can view it on YouTube. I'm out glue, my favorite glues. So I'm just going to strengthen these a little bit. So I've just added a little piece of cardstock to the back. So that's the only thing I'm doing that's different on these than what I did before. Because when I thinned that paper out, when I pulled it apart, it really thinned it out a lot. So I'm doing this so that they have a little bit of strength. Got to keep up their strength. Somebody in my life used to say that. Instead of strength, they call it strength. Don't know who that was. Alright, so the next thing that's going to happen is you can use eyelets, you could use all kinds of things to stick these down. I used brads because I like brads. And because it was easy. So there you go. And besides that, if you get too far down into this part of the envelope down here, my eyelet setter won't reach into there, so I could do it with a brad, so that's what I used. Alright, so I've got these glued together, so they are ready to rock and roll. So those are going to be my little windy parts. These are my little, these little parts, these little windy things, whatever they're called. Hi, Haley. How old are you, Haley? I'm glad you're watching. You need to tell your grandma she needs to feed you. She needs to feed you. Okay, so what you want to do now is you want to just decide where you're going to put these little gizmos. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to guess about where the middle of each of these is. I'm just going to guess. And what can I do this in so you can see it? I don't know. We'll try it with a Sharpie marker. So I'm going to guess where the middle is. Okay, I'm sure you won't be able to see it on all these. It's a good question choice. It's a very good question. So I'm just kind of marking the middle. Now you don't have to punch a hole or Deb, you started it. This is a power punch. It's a We Are Memory Keepers power punch, and this is the T-Tiny one. It's like a 1/16 of an inch. I've simply pulled out the black part that goes in here because it's easier to see. And so I'm going to line this up in here as best I can, finding my black mark. And punch a hole in it. So it gives me a little hole for the brad to go in. This is easier said than done. It would be much easier to just poke the hole with your pointy thing. She says as she struggles. Thought maybe I could see the hole then. Let's see if I can see it. This is the disadvantage. Nope, can't see it. So we're just going to do it with the pointy thing. On this one, I had no trouble seeing where the mark was because the color was light, but these dark ones, I can't see it, so I'm just going to have to make the hole big enough with the pointy stick. With the paper piercer or whatever this thing is called. So just make a nice hole in each one of them. Because we're doing 2 envelopes, that's why I got 4 of them going on here. Then I'm going to take my envelopes, and then I'm going to decide where that's going to go. Okay, now what I might do first is use my ink. And I have cobalt ink and a little piece of sponge, the ink blending foam, and I might just go around these a little bit. It just finishes them up. Gives them a little more of a finished look. Remember, this whole thing is inspired from the latest issue of Green Craft magazine. It's a Stampington publication. So that's where this came from. They used just the plain brown paper sack. But I decided that if you have an opportunity to exercise, use your art supplies and exercise your creativity, why shouldn't you do that? Nothing wrong with the plain brown paper sack, but you gotta admit that's pretty fancy. So I'm just going around the edges with a little bit of the cobalt ink. Could be black, could be whatever color you want. Just gives it a little something something extra. Good, AJ. I mean, you could do the same thing and use them as Happy Mail, as mail art envelopes. Who wouldn't want to get one of these? Now, of course, you're going to have to put a white label on them to put your address on, Okay, so there's that one, which probably, my nose is now itching, probably is not anything you can see at all, but I know I inked it, so there you go. You have to be careful on this. This would be better if you thought about it ahead of time to ink that before you ever sewed it, but of course I didn't think about that in time. I did the same thing the first time. You'd think that I would remember the second time, but no. Let's not think ahead, people. Let's not think ahead. And let's not learn from earlier experiments. No. Whatever you do, do it again the same way you did the first time. Okay, so we got that. Inked. Alright, like I said, back here, we're going to use some brads. Let's see what I have. I have these cute little flower brads. Maybe we'll use those. What do you think? Let's do it. I say let's do it. These cute little flower brads. So, let's use these little ones, and what color do I want to use? Let's use pink on one, and we'll use purple on the other one. And these are really short little brads. Short-legged. They're short-legged little things. So what I'm going to do is use my mat again. Just just to kind of protect things here. If you can use this, it just makes things easier. But if you can't, no worries. Just use your pokey tool. Okay, so I've got this one. I'm going to put this on. I'm going to decide where it's going to go. So I'm going to say it's going to go right about there. And so just so I don't have to mark it, I'm going to come right through it. And I'm going to just poke. Okay, just kind of poke it through. And then let's see if the brad will go through it. See if we got the hole big enough. Sure enough. Then if you have fingernails, this is ever so helpful if you have fingernails. Put the little legs of the brad and then just poke them a little bit. And this is where you can use a piece of washi tape. And just put it over the brad. They are tiny. They are tea-tiny. If you're concerned about your washi tape coming loose, then you need to add a little bit of glue behind it. This is score tape, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But that will hold the legs of the brad on there. And then I kind of just, you know, bend these up a little bit just to give it a little bit of dimension, you know, so it's kind of got some dimension going on. All right, decide where you want the other one. So let's say that I want it about there. And I'm not measuring or doing anything. I'm just kind of going, yeah, I think that's where I want it. And then I'm going to poke this through. Be careful you don't go all the way through the hole, the envelope to the other side. And then put this in. Now this is the part where it gets tricky because you gotta pull inside the envelope, and these little short-legged brads are a little tricky. And I'm sure there's a much easier way to do this, but you know, I never was known for doing it the easy way. No, no, no. Okay. And if you want to get really persnickety about this, you can actually go down inside the envelope with a piece of washi tape, and I did this on the other one, and I used the tweezers to get down in there and put that tape over the legs of the brad. That'll just make sure that nothing ever catches on it. I will do that off camera to spare you. All right, then I used pearl cotton. And I have some really pretty variegated pearl cottons like this, but plain would be fine, or you could use 2 different colors or whatever. And I doubled it, so I just took a string and I thought, oh, that looks like about enough. That's literally how much I measured. So to give you an idea, it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 inches long. Could be shorter, could be longer. Doubled it, I tied a knot, and that's going to hold the 2 loose ends together, okay? And then I went up a few inches, couple inches, and tied another knot. Went up a couple more inches, tied another knot. And same thing up at the top. So I was holding the 2 strands together like that. That's what I did. Okay. So that is what I did. So I've got knots holding the doubled strand together. All right, then I came back over to the top one and I went around it. And I tied a little knot very close to the loopy end because that was the one that I decided to use. Okay, so I did a little knot. I did another little knot. And I looked at it and I go, yep, I think that's about long enough. If it's not, then you can do something different. I cut the little loose end off because it's knotted under there a couple of times. So I cut that part away. Then I put it down and then I wound it around my little envelope, and there you go. You got an envelope with its little, whatever these things are called, its little closure. Okay, see? And I let these kind of curl up a little bit on purpose so that they're easier to use and they look a little bit more decorative. Now you could use buttons, you could do all kinds of things. But there you go. There's one side. There's the other side. And then this is the other one that I did earlier, but I used square bits of the leftover paper. And this one had a leftover piece of this washi style tape that I put in the middle of that. And I used some fancy little brads, and these had long legs. These had much longer legs. They were like this long compared to the ones I just used, which are really tiny. So I put the tape over that, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not. Let's see if I can get a shot down there. Yeah, you can see it. See, the tape is over the brad right in there, over the legs. The flangel flap. Is that for real, or are you just giving me a bunch of lip, Brenda? Now you could make this. You could make this little string tie longer, and then of course you could do figure eights, between the two, figure eight about there, but anyway, there's that one. Here's this one that we just did. This one doesn't have its brads on yet, but it's got the flap attached with tape. What else? We'll look at the other papers. If I can remember where I stuck them. Look at the other papers. You could if you knew where you wanted it to go. Absolutely. Yep. So here are the other papers that I did. It's too easy, that's right. So here's another one. You have to remember that I don't plan this stuff ahead. I do it on the fly. If I'm actually teaching a real class, then I plan it all out. And here's the other one. This one's still a little damp, so we have to let that one sit. So anyway, they could make some pretty envelopes. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, I saw it. Absolutely. For every way that you do something, there's 100 other ways to do it for sure. And probably easier. But you have to think ahead. And I don't generally think all the way ahead. I generally do it backwards and upside down at least 3 times first before I go. I gotta remember not to do that way. Vicki, it's good to have you here the whole time. Hope things are going well for you. Good. Okay, that's it. I'm going to head out. Thanks for joining me. And if you're watching the recording, thanks for watching the recording. And I will see you next time. And yeah, I'll see you next week. So you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you next time.